Guess who's back?
Back
Back again.
again.
J
Shady's
Max
back.
back.
Yeah. Ryder too.
I don't know what you know, we're back.
Another
Shady's
episode.
back. We're back. It's music time. Some more uh discussion to be had about this new Eminem album, The Death of Slim Shady. I'm sure it'll go number one. It's doing good right now.
Yeah.
A lot of mixed reviews I'm seeing out there in the
Same.
world, as tends to be the case with his modern stuff. I feel like
Yeah.
um, we for sure have been in the mix of this mixed
Yeah.
consensus in the public. Our video that we did on social media a while ago about Eminem. A lot of mixed opinions in there for sure. Um, but yeah, we're here with a full review on the album and kind of how it's sitting with us. A little background. I think I can speak for you when I would say we're both big fans of
Yeah.
Eminem. For sure, one of the artists that got me into hip hop, got me interested in the genre initially. Someone that is always up near the top of my most played artists, albums that I consider favorites and classics for sure. Um, Anything that you want to add to that introduction before we?
No, you basically summed it up.
Yeah,
I'm basically the exact same way. He was probably the first legitimate hip hop artist, I would say, because I think the first like rapper I ever heard was like Macklemore, and I'm not gonna really count that.
fair enough.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah, basically just piggyback off of you. I agree.
yeah, and I think the older I've gotten, and you can correct me if this isn't accurate for you as well. The older I've gotten, the better the older projects have aged for me, and the worse the newer projects have aged for me. And that's not to say I think they're complete trash.
Mhm.
Even up through 2013, I would consider great bodies of work from him. It's more 2017, 2018, and into the 2020s with Revival, Kamikaze, and Music to Be Murdered By that I think there hasn't, it's not like the guys totally fallen off to me anyways. I would
Mhm.
say Revival is probably the closest thing to a fall off. But then there's a lot of merit on Kamikaze and Music to Be Murdered By, but I think they just lack the complete top to bottom quality that a lot of the early stuff does.
Yeah. Granted, I am a huge fan of Eminem, but because I haven't listened to full albums until these last couple years from top to bottom, I can't say that I've heard every Eminem project. Um, but what I can say is, um, the older that I've gotten, I have become far less delusional and have accepted that he has made some pretty booger songs, and like
Yeah.
there are albums that are not good. Like it just is what it is, and
Right.
that's okay because all artists go through that. All great artists have their fair selection of not great.
Yeah.
um and I don't think any one album of M's is just complete and utter garbage. Like even Revival, I think there's like at least one or two songs that like I'll still listen to from time to time. Like they're not that bad. Um, but I do agree once Music to Be Murdered By and Kamikaze, it kind of helped him out a little bit. Still
Yeah.
pretty mediocre for what Eminem has in his catalog, but it's
Right.
it's definitely a better direction than where Revival was. So
Yeah. And so, with that being the preface here, the death of Slim Shady, I was not sure how this was going to go when it was announced and with the singles leading up to it. But let's go ahead and get into this thing, starting off talking about the production, obviously Dr. Dre having a little bit of a hand in it. Eminem taking a lot of it on as he has been doing for quite some time now. Um, how are you feeling about the production on this one?
I feel like the production went up exponentially from, and this is when I say that, I mean top to bottom as an album. I think it's gone up after Music to Be Murdered By. There was some cool production in the last three albums that Revival bad, the other two mediocre. So I think with the production aspect, I think definitely a great step in the right direction. There's some old tracks, or there's some tracks in here that sound like that old Slim Shady kind of style. That one that you you really hate the chorus on, that dancing one. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, what I don't remember which one that's
brand
called, but
brand new dance. Yeah, I've got plenty to say about that one, but yeah,
um,
it is very old school for
yeah,
sure.
I really enjoyed the production, top to bottom. They're not all phenomenal produced, but
Yeah.
as a body of work, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it a 9.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That is exceptionally high.
Yeah.
I do think for me it was respectable beat selection. I agree with you that it is an improvement in a lot of areas because while I don't think all of Music to Be Murdered By and Kamikaze were trash beats, I don't think they were fantastic
Yeah.
top to bottom. I do think this was quite a step up in that sense. I personally feel like the beats never really took anything away from the song. Like it was never like I was listening to the song and I was like, this beat's so bad that it's ruining the song for me. But
Yeah.
I also never felt like I was listening and like the beat is making this the great
Mm.
song, if that makes sense. It
Yeah.
was always it felt like on the back burner to me, which is kind of par for Eminem.
Hmm.
But I will say in kind of going through his older stuff, in getting ready for this album and for this review, I do think it lacks some of the memorability that the early stuff has. You could, hum the real Slim Shady without me, or my name is, or a lot of Eminem beats from early in his career, and I don't feel like there's going to be anything like that off of this project personally.
Hmm.
That's that memorable. Um, but yeah, I will say I like it's adequate. I don't think it's necessarily a bad aspect of the album. I gave it a 6. I think there was a lot of times where he was pretty obviously pulling inspiration from himself, which I do feel like is kind of a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like it was a bad thing. It was just like, 20 years later, it's almost like he's sampling his own beat in sometimes. And I was like, okay, it's kind of a little bit of a weird direction. But I didn't mind the stylistic choices. So overall, it was a 6. Um, but kind of going into something else that I wouldn't say Eminem's really known for is the vocal performances. He obviously is not, we're not getting Michael Jackson or Adele when you're getting an Eminem album. It's
Yeah.
not what we're here for. But kind of taking that with a grain of salt and talking more about the flows and the vocal inflections and deliveries. How did that portion of the album resonate with you?
So I've come to find what I think is a fair scale when it comes to somebody who isn't really a vocalist, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
same for those who aren't really like a lyricist, somebody I don't go for lyrics, and it's to start them off at a 5. It just seems
Yeah.
very fair. So I ended up giving vocals a 6, because it basically exactly what you said. But the one thing that I like that Eminem does, and he's very good at it, it's nothing new for him. I just appreciate it, is he's very good at layering when when his vocals need to be layered, and it's this almost like ominous vocalistic style that has always suited him very well in my opinion, and I think always turns out pretty cool, especially because he doesn't overuse it or overplay it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it still wasn't anything, crazy. So I gave it a 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I also gave it a 6 because, like you're saying, it is better than kind of what I expected. And especially coming off of um, even if we're going back to like Recovery and the Marshall Mathers LP2, which are albums that I really personally like.
Mhm.
But especially through Recovery and Music to Be Murdered By and Kamikaze, there's been so much, what's the word, uniform vocal performance over that time for
Mhm.
me compared to the early stuff. It like for sure, if you put them side by side, it's not going to be the exact same. But compared to how diverse the early stuff is in terms of his vocal deliveries, the more recent stuff has not been very diverse
I
in
agree.
in comparison. But I think this one went back to that more diverse uh, and unique vocal inflections, vocal flows, and deliveries. He kind of gets away from the staccato stuff that he's been doing, especially the last 2 years, which was cool. Um, and I do think that it provides original and interesting moments for songs that it's not like I feel like I'm listening to the Eminem show or I feel like I'm
Mhm.
listening to Recovery. It brings its own flavor a lot of the time in the album. Um, I do think it does lack some performance occasionally, like just as you're
Yeah.
going to get with Eminem. Specifically, I will say, and I'm not going to disrespect this song because it is very heartfelt, but I think on Temporary, the song Towards His Daughter, just vocal performance wise, not really his strongest suit.
Mhm.
But especially on Brand New Dance, which, it sounds like you may like better than I do. But I think on the chorus, especially, it's a very, this is, if I'm understanding the album correctly,
Mhm.
what he says later is this is a song that was originally meant to be on Encore that he's
Mm.
kind of remastered and redone and put on this project.
That's cool.
And yeah, cool idea for sure. But I think it's very poor execution. And I
Mhm.
think it's a very poor era to pull throwaways from because a lot of
Yeah.
Encore is throwaways. I don't know if you've ever listened to the whole album.
I,
It's
I
got
don't think
hits
all
and
the
it's
way through. I don't think
yeah,
all the way
it's
through.
got hits and it's got good stuff, but for sure a lot of throwaways on there like prior to relapse and like revival conversations, people were like, yeah, this is garbage
Yeah.
Eminem, like he's gone off. Um, and so it's kind of weird to pull a throwaway from an era that was already kind of a throwaway in a lot of people's minds. So anyways, I don't think that's really doing a whole lot of favors in terms of the performance on the album. I do think it's
Mhm.
cool to pull a song, but anyways, I do think it could have benefited from some improvement. But like I said, it's not really the selling point, so I'm
Yeah.
not really too harsh on it there. But what is the selling point with every Eminem album, and I feel like it always has been, is the lyrical content. Um, for me, I did rate this pretty highly. I thought it was pretty well done. I gave it an 8. Um, I think it's an improvement on the cheesy flaws that have kind of plagued a lot of his work from the last few years. Like, oh my gosh, I got in a discussion with some guy online about the song Stepdad off of
Yeah.
Music to Be Murdered By. Oh my gosh. We have a 40-plus-year-old man complaining about his stepfather when he was a kid, and not in like a, yeah, I had a rough life with a rough
Yeah.
stepdad kind of complaining, like, no, like, I hate my stepdad. So bad. Um, so for sure some improvement on that kind of cheesy aspect, but it's not immune to it.
Yeah.
I think with any lyricist, when you're going so out of your way to make so many lyrical moments and bring in as many entendres as you can and make as many jokes as you can, especially for Eminem, there's just going to be some of those cheesy moments. So I kind of take that with a grain of salt when I'm listening to it, because there are some pretty laugh out loud funny times on the album that you're just like he starts going into the bar and you're like, oh dude, where are you going with this? Like what? Oh man, this could end really badly. Where are we going here? And it like, most of the time on this album, he nails it, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like I will say the Bruce Jenner line I think is really funny. I think it's on Habits. Yeah, the first time he roasts
Yeah.
Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner. is pretty funny. And then the Amber Heard line cracked me up.
I was
That was
dying.
hilarious. The P Diddy line was also super funny. Um, what was the other one? Oh, on Toby, the belt line was super funny where he's like, I can't remember if he says something about like a stepdad.
Oh yeah,
I'm,
yeah, 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 yeah,
gonna
yeah,
get
yeah.
the belt or whatever. Super funny. Really made me laugh. I will say it does falter that he kind of recycles a lot of the same jokes. Like, how many times are we going to make fun of Christopher Reeves on the album? How many times are we going to make fun of Caitlyn Jenner on the album?
Yeah.
Like, one joke, funny. Two jokes, like, okay, I get where you're coming from. It fits the wordplay. Three, four, five,
Yeah.
Caitlyn Jenner jokes. It's like, okay, dude, come
Yeah.
on. Like,
I don't
we're halfway through and we've got four of these.
I don't need
um,
to be reminded of Caitlyn Jenner that much. Like,
yeah, yeah. And just to wrap this up before I turn the time over to you with this category, um, I it's kind of weird because he so blatantly lays out what he's doing in this, but just a commentary on his career. I think a lot of people do take what he's saying and what he's rapping about way too seriously a lot of the time. Because and a prime example is the Jelly Roll bar.
mhm.
Like he's like says something about how big Jelly Roll's belly is or whatever.
Yeah.
And literally like two tracks later, we have
He
a
has
Jelly
Jelly
Roll
Roll. Yeah.
song with him, and so obviously there's no bad blood between them.
Mhm.
And it's just jokes. It's just like for a punchline in
Right.
in the context. And I think people can at times blow that up a little bit. I don't think too many of like the, you know, hardcore hip hop fans are going to think that, but just something that I think is worth bringing up, especially in the context of the concept, which we'll get into here. But
Yeah.
you're a lyrical guy. You've been waiting for an album like this. How did it happen for you?
Oh man, it was nice. It was real nice. So just to get out of the way, I also gave it an 8 because of the same reasons that like you were kind of saying the whole, how many times are we going to hear the kind of same joke or same line? Um, but other than that, man, like obviously the first I always try to do two listens, one to just listen it out, and then the second I try to read along with the lyrics. Um, I think it first very like caught my attention when off the first track because I didn't hear it at first, but then he started popping off on Kendrick, Ye,
Yeah.
Wayne, all of them, and I was like, oh my gosh, is he dissing all of these guys? And then I listened back like for the fourth time and it said like, oh, this is like the mind of a hater. But I love that entire scheme. Like that's kind of what started getting me a little hyped for the entirety of it. I know that you think it's really corny, but it's grown on me. But like the Toby chorus hook, whatever you want to call it, um, to me that's just something I expect from M off bat because he you can only say so many lines within your career. You can like you have to find something new, find something different, and it's bound to be corny every once in a while, But it's things like that that make me really happy because those are the things that I laugh at. Um, but I mean, I didn't write down like any specific lyrics or anything like that. Um, I thought this doesn't really go into lyrics. This might accidentally kind of like cross with concept, but I loved the skits and I loved how it was written out. Even in the intro to some of these songs where he's having this like fight between I guess himself.
Yeah.
Um, I just thought it was very well written out. I think the entirety of Guilty Conscious 2 um was another one of the best. I don't know if I want to say best. Another great performance when it comes to storytelling. Like that's already hard to do if you're trying to have a conversation with somebody else in the form of music, but to do it against yourself is it becomes a little bit more difficult. And so I think he did it very well. Man, I was just very happy with the overall performance.
Yeah. I will say, just because you brought it up, the Tobey Maguire line, um, it's not as annoying to me as it was in the first place. I just wish it didn't have as big of a presence as it does. You know, we get it
Yeah.
3 times on the Babytron chorus, and then Eminem get, and it's literally the opener too. Like if it slid
Yeah.
in there in like halfway through Babytron's verse, and then we're going from there. Like I wouldn't mind it as much.
Yeah.
I think it's just how overused it is, because if it's just the one time, I'm with you where it's like okay, like funny,
Yeah.
but it's like by the fourth time when Eminem's, saying it, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
But anyways,
I think real quick, I think why I'm even like I really don't care about that line as much anymore, and I kind of just laugh it off at this point, is because I think the rest of that chorus off Babytron is I think it's dope. I think
yeah,
it's all cool. The whole Leia to Obi-Wan, I think I'm the hope, like that's dope. And oh yeah, I thought it was a great performance in the end.
yeah. I don't know if you've seen the music video, but it's pretty cool.
I still need to go watch that one.
Yeah. But you brought this up, but let's get into the concept here. You know, uh, you've been very open. You are not a concept guy. I'm hoping you picked up what we got going on here.
We're in the clear this time.
Okay, okay.
I'm
Yeah,
M put out on Insta and all socials that it was a concept album, and I
yeah.
immediately was like, I'm in the clear then. This is gonna be very easy for me to follow along with. So
Yeah. But just to kind of lay this out, we have this idea of the death of Eminem, or of Slim Shady rather, kind of this full circle moment in his career of being in this modern time, a rapper that's kind of from a different era where different things were more okay than they are now,
yeah.
maybe, and kind of bringing that style to the modern in an effort to quote unquote cancel himself. Kind of an interesting metaphorical death concept thing. I've seen a lot of people say this is the last Eminem album. I think he's very intentionally not said anything to that extent so that it could be or it couldn't be.
Yeah.
Um, my hope. Actually, I'll get into that in a second. It's a very well done concept to me. I think it does shy just a little bit away from perfect. I don't think it's quite like Good Kid, Mad City concept, or like something of that nature. But it's very well done. I do think a couple of times it gets like a little cheesy and melodramatic how into the like I'm gonna cancel myself thing he
Yeah.
gets. Um, so I ended up giving it a 7. I am kind of teetering. I feel like it's actually going to be a 6 or an 8 for me,
Mm.
but it's going to depend how it ages. If Eminem comes out in 3 years and is like, you thought Slim Shady was dead, then I'll be like, okay, this is like a 5 or a 6
Yeah.
concept at that point. But if it is the last album, while I don't think it's a perfect send off, I think it's a cool concept to send it off. And in that case, it'd probably be 7 or an 8. So I'm kind of sitting softly at a 7 right now.
Yeah. I'm pretty close. My mind went to a whole bunch of different places as I was getting ready for this album, like even all the way to when it was announced. I ended up giving the concept an 8. Now, when I first heard the title being Death of Slim Shady, that's where my first thought was okay, this is the last Eminem project, like he's done after this. But then you kind of you listen through and like maybe halfway through or pretty close to the end of it, he kills Slim Shady, like he's dead. But then he continues to go, right? So then I'm thinking like, okay, well, like, are we just done with that kind of behavior? Like, are we still gonna have Eminem? Maybe not like a full project, but like Does that like why wouldn't be he like make another song with like Corday and Jack Harlow or whoever the heck else? Like and I agree. I think that's why he has made sure he hasn't said anything about his plans. Um, but I like that he's left that up to own interpretation. Like I was saying before, I think the whole skits really tie it together. This whole battle with himself where he like Slim Shady kidnapped M and like is trying to make him like drink and pop pills and like dye his hair back and like forcing him to watch the news and the downfall of what M has tried to recreate. Um, I think the story building aspect throughout the entirety was really good. I do agree though. I don't think it's Kendrick Lamar or even an early M. Like I think it's well done. Just it misses perfect. Um, I think the only time this rating drops for me is if he does like, oh, Slim Shady's back somehow. But like, if he were to just come back with like another album and this wasn't like the last album, then it stands for me at an 8 because I don't know. He didn't say he was done, just that Slim Shady's gone. So if he kind of how you feel about Kendrick's Mr. Morale and then that whole beef thing where like you were just making all this progress and then you took steps back. If
Yeah.
if M's killing Shady and is like basically saying, okay, well, this kind of behavior is done for, and then comes back and then hits me with some more ridiculous lines that Slim Shady would be saying, then I'm getting that same kind of feeling. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mostly like really what it would take for me. Like I don't know if I would necessarily mind like him going even back to Slim Shady stylistically kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's more if he comes with like for me it's more if he comes with like the resurrection of Slim Shady album and I'm like you're just getting money out of us now. This is just Taylor's version at that point, you know.
Taylor's
Um
version.
um, also, I will say, no matter how many times I hear Ken Kniff skits, those crack me up every time. The like very last skit guy, without fail, like
Where'd
I will always
everyone
laugh.
go?
Where's it? Where'd everybody go? Hello. Every time will crack me up. But let's get into something that this was really truthfully I think what people were so mad at me about on the internet when
Mhm.
I came with what I thought would make for,
Yeah.
what I would want to hear on a new Eminem album. The features, some feature recommendations, excuse me, that I put out there was a Weekend or a Travis Scott or a J. Cole or a Tizo Touchdown. Um, or just somebody that is not necessarily in the pool of artists that is the immediate Eminem style feature. Just to kind of add some of that talent and uniqueness to another great artist, I thought would be cool. A lot of people did not like that idea.
They were very mad
Um,
at you.
very, very angry.
Yeah.
Which, whatever. But that is not at all what we got on this album. It does seem very standard for Eminem features. There are a couple where it's like, oh, cool to see JID, interesting pick with a Jelly Roll feature. But the more I think about it, like I really don't think that's all that weird of a feature
Mhm.
sample for him to use. Another kind of Midwest Southern
Right.
country rapper kind of,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, how did these features feel in your listening experience?
I was beyond happy. I
Oh,
I
okay.
was because at first I didn't see who was on it at first.
Right.
I just pushed play and
Yep.
I didn't even think to like look for features. Um and I already knew that Skylar Gray was a lock because it's Skylar Gray and Eminem. Now first
Right.
This is
Gotta
what we're
be
gonna
on.
do. This is what we're gonna do. We are not gonna slander Skylar Gray ever again. That's what we're gonna do to all the people that were hating in the comments about Skylar Gray. I'm over it. You know what? It's time I said it. I'm standing my ground. It was one of the best performances in features. She killed the hook on Temporary, and that song made me very emotional and teary eyed. So we're not gonna disrespect Skylar Gray. There we go. So there's that. Everyone else killed it. Besides the two that I was not super impressed with were Dem Joints and Easy Mill. It felt weird when Easy Mill came in. And I hate doing it because I guess that's personal preference, but I'm just not into the different languages. Like that's just not my style. And so it just kind of threw me off guard and just kind of put me in this weird like vibe. And I wasn't really for it. Um, in Road Rage with Dem Joints, it was just flat out garbage. I'll say that. Yeah, I don't know who Sly Piper is. Killed it. Loved it. I thought that person, I don't know if that's a guy or girl. But killed it. White Gold, don't know who that is. Killed it. JID, I've already seen people say that JID carried the album, and oh, how wrong those people are, and I will disagree with that to the ends of the earth. He was good. Like he did his job. He did what JID does. It's not the best second, third, or fourth best feature. I'd put him at like five. I think Skylar Gray, Jelly Roll, Babytron, and Big Sean all did better than JID. Respectfully, I'm not even saying it was bad, but I liked the other ones better. Um, Basically to wrap it up, I was very happy with the features. Maybe do I wish that other people were on it? Yeah. Like I would love J. Cole or The Weeknd to be a part of an M song. I think that'd be dope. But it is what it is. I still enjoyed the features for what they were. I gave the features an 8 because I only didn't like two.
Yeah, fair enough. I think this is where we will disagree quite a bit.
That's okay.
And not even just because of like the score. I don't think our scores are all that crazy different.
Mhm.
But I do see it a lot different. I do think it could have benefited from more, from better and more variety in the features. Um, and it's not that I think that anyone's done bad. Like you're saying, I think Skylar Grace sounds fantastic. I think it's a
Yeah.
great hook. I think she's a great vocalist, but I've heard upwards of 10 songs between Eminem and Skylar Grey at this
Yeah.
point. And so do I think she killed it? Yeah, but would I have loved to hear how SZA would do that hook? Yeah. I would be very curious to hear how that sounds. Just personally, as and
Right.
that's a personal preference just because I've heard Skylar Grey and Eminem so much. It's like it's not that she's a bad artist and I would never say that about her. It's just that I was hoping to hear a new sound and how
Yeah.
that would go in
Absolutely.
my mind. And that goes for a lot of these features. Even, the Easy Mill thing, I hear where you're coming from. I don't think he did all that bad, but like I've heard a better Eminem and Easy Mill song. I think
Yeah.
his single that they did a while back is better.
Agreed.
White Gold does do great on this album, but at this point it's the fourth, fifth song I've heard between Eminem
Mm.
and White Gold, and I do think Zeus is equally as good a performance from White Gold
Oh,
as
that's White
this.
Gold.
Right. Yeah,
Oh, that's dope.
that's him. Um, so again, like I don't think he's bad at all. I think he's got a couple great hooks on the album, but like I would love to hear, a different artist. Maybe I don't know who. It's hard to think of someone
Someone.
off the top of my head. Someone, a Kid Cudi. I don't know. Somebody in there that like
Yeah.
isn't just the go to. I feel like.
Yeah.
Um, and even like in this album itself, like we get a second White Gold feature, we get a second
Yeah.
Sly Piper feature, and it's just like for me, it was like okay, I could have done with just a little bit more variety. I don't even mind a White Gold feature or a Sly Piper feature, or it's just like if there was more variety added in, I think I would have appreciated that more.
Yeah.
I do feel like JID was one of the strongest points of the album. I won't necessarily say he was the only good part or that he carried the album, but I do think he was one of the strongest. Big Sean sounds great. Babytron, I was pleasantly surprised with. Overall, I gave it a 6, but I do think it could have benefited, or at least I would have personally liked to hear a little bit more variety.
Yeah.
Um,
Before we switch, because
yeah,
there's at least rumor or news or whatever, and this is also what kind of maybe helped me keep the rating that I did, but there's rumor that there will be a side B to this album. Halfway through the album, is when you hear Eminem like wake up and he's like calls Paul and he's like telling him this crazy dream. The rumor is that um Slim Shady kills Eminem and it's like this dream and this different like path.
mm,
Because there's been talks that like Dre, 50 Cent, Royce to 5'9", Cole, and The Weeknd were all supposed to be on this album, and we get
right.
none of that. So there's theories and rumors. So if if we don't get that side B, my rating probably does drop to like a
Yeah.
7. But that in the back of my mind, you know,
Yeah,
anyways.
for sure. Yeah. I do agree. Like I said, I think a lot of people do really well. I was pleasantly surprised with how the Jelly Roll sample turned out.
Me too.
Even though, like, as time goes on, I don't think it's all that weird of a collaboration. It's
Yeah.
just not one that I would have thought of.
Yeah.
But let's get into the replay value here. Um, you're a big Eminem fan. How is this going to age in your rotation?
So right now, off bat, I have it at a 7. I did get quite a few songs from the album that I've downloaded. Um, there's a couple that I would gladly listen to and put on like my gym playlist. I'm a sucker for like heartfelt songs every once in a while. So like Somebody Save Me and Temporary, like I downloaded both of them. Yeah, they're not like to me, they're not my experiences, but I love how well it came out, um, and how well it sounds that I'd be down to get like in my feels with those. I love the attack in like Habits and Fuel with JID. There's some fun melodic playfulness in things like Antichrist and well, I guess just Antichrist just with that hook. Um Yeah, so I gave it a 7. Does it stay a 7? Not 100% sure. If anything, it would drop to a 6, but I'm pretty confident with a 7.
Fair enough. Again, I think we'll be pretty different here. For me, I think just a little bit the opposite of you. I
Mm,
think there's a lot of unmemorable tracks. And I will say I went back and forth on quite a few different scores with this when I was listening to it because I was like, I really do like some of these tracks a lot. Renaissance, I think, is a fantastic opener.
yeah.
Habits, I think, is a great song. Fuel is a cool, blend of those two artists. Temporary, I don't know if I'd come back to. I
Yeah.
really do like the Skylar Grey hook. Somebody Save Me, I think, is a good song. Toby Maguire got bit by a spider. If I can
He,
get past that,
it was a goat.
yeah, I do really, really like the Big Sean verse on that one. Um, so basically, the score here just comes down to the math, and it's a 3. Um,
Oh.
it's a 3 out of 10. Because I do think there's a lot of unmemorable tracks, or tracks that I'm just never going to listen to.
Hmm.
I think like Road Rage for sure, Lucifer as probably one that I'll never come back to, Evil, Trouble, Brand New Dance. I just think there's too many that are like, I could say they have merit, but I'm just never going to come back to them. I can see the value in them. Like, I do think the Sly Piper feature is cool, but like, I'm never going to come back to that song just for that. But I do think it does have some of his best, more modern tracks, at least in the last decade, like, or not in the last decade, but like since the 2020 started. Um, but yeah, it's
It's just not it's not for you.
yeah, three because there's like 5, 6 tracks, 6 maybe that I'll come back to.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, let's wrap this thing up with, I guess, what did your overall score end up being?
So an 8.
Okay, that's pretty
Yeah.
high.
Yeah. I was I was happy with it overall.
Okay,
I enjoyed it.
so it's up there as one of this year's best for you
Yeah.
so far,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
Rating wise, I this year, because I know you did two lists last year, so I might do the same for enjoyment and actual rating.
Yeah.
Because yeah, because I feel like that'll differ. But
Okay. Fair
yeah,
enough. Fair enough.
yeah,
Yeah. I for me it was a 6 out of 10. Somewhere in that ballpark's about right. I could
yeah,
see it depending on how it ages, being maybe a little bit higher than that, up to the 6.5 range. But yeah, somewhere in there for me. Um, what's your best, worst, and most underrated song so far on this album?
yeah. The worst one definitely is Road Rage. Not only did I not enjoy the feature, but it felt like at that point he got a little tired. It felt like there wasn't much energy put forth into that track. It kind of seemed like everybody was on like half energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Luckily it picked up after that point, in my opinion. But yeah, Road Rage was not good. I also personally didn't like Head Honcho, but that's mainly because of the Easy Mill feature. My favorite one, this one was a toss up for me because for an Eminem project, it you want to choose like an actual Eminem song. You don't want like so Habits is in my opinion the best one, but like Somebody Save Me I think is like just as good, but when you think Eminem, you're not thinking Somebody Save Me. You're thinking you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
No, yeah,
that's
I'm with you.
that's kind of where I'm at with that. I think the most underrated is Guilty Conscious too. Um I have high praise for that song, just because of how difficult that concept is alone. And I think he bodied it. So
Yeah, for sure. For me, the worst track I do think is Brand New Dance. It's such a throwaway. It's such a throwaway. It was a throwaway 20 years ago. It's a throwaway now. I really don't think it's good. Like it's supposed to be funny, and I just don't think it's like it's not that I like, you know, don't think that kind of humor's funny. I just don't think it was well executed
yeah,
like enough to be funny.
yeah,
Um I think he's got way goofier, Slim Shady, funny, dancey songs. And again, like I've talked about it, so I won't go much more into it. I I do think Habits is one of the best songs on the album. Um, I would also make an argument that Fuel is one of the best songs on the album.
mm,
Not just the JID feature, but I think the Eminem verse is great, and I really think the chorus is pretty catchy. Um, for me, I'm with you though. And Renaissance. Renaissance is close, but
yeah,
I didn't want to throw that in there just because it's an intro, and so it's like it's not a full song experience. You're like getting basically an extended verse, but it's very well done. It's
yeah.
great.
I agree.
But my most underrated also is Guilty Conscience 2. It's um I I don't know how familiar you are with a lot of his older stuff, although Guilty Conscience is a very popular song. Like, is it a song that you know pretty well or
Oh
heard at
yeah,
all?
I still
Okay,
have it
okay.
downloaded. I
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
like probably almost every word.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect. Because it is one of those older era songs, and like just as a fan of his, I feel like it is an older era song that we kind of often don't bring up as like a classic, even though it's
yeah,
really good. But when like there was no Dr. Dre feature, I was like, interesting. Like I
yeah,
thought that was kind of like the whole premise. But I ended up loving the direction he took with it of like, this is a similar song idea. That's why it's Guilty Conscience too. But it's like, you know, it's his conscience that he's arguing over, which I
yeah,
loved. I loved how it was done. Um, at times maybe a little over the top, but like I do think that works in its favor because
mm,
it's like he's kind of arguing about like why are you so over the top, and then he's like, if
yeah,
you want to get the full song experience, just listen to it.
yeah.
Don't listen to
Absolutely.
me try to describe it because that's not going to do anybody any favors. Um, but overall, pleasantly surprised for me in some aspects, a little let down in others, I would say. But overall, not a terrible album. Um, and that's basically my full consensus on it.
Yeah. Do I think this is one of his best albums ever? No, not in the slightest. It won't.
Yeah,
Nothing that he does now, I think, will ever top his old stuff, and that's okay. If you make a classic, you make a classic. Good for you.
right.
Um, do me personally, I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is a top three of my favorite artists of all time. Did I buy the vinyl? Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah,
Dude,
it's a cool
I
cover.
got bro. No, I did it. I gotta send you a picture. It's freaking dope. The vinyl's like white and like, yeah, I'm hyped. But anyways,
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, that I do think that wraps up the Eminem episode here. The death of Slim Shady. Sure, we'll probably get a few angry YouTube people watching this
yeah,
saying it's a 10. Um, and if it's somebody's 10, good for them.
all right.
But
I'm glad you
couldn't
enjoyed it that
couldn't
much.
yeah, couldn't be me.
Yeah,
Anyways, we'll be back next week, another episode as per usual.
yeah.
Uh, any last words before the death of Slim Shady?
No,
All right, the coup de grace. Hurrah.
sayonara.